Hi, Craig. Thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Today, we're not only our first guest on VirtuPort, but it's also the first day, and your panel discussion was the first panel discussion on stage. We were talking about the different possibilities of AI and cybersecurity, and what was so wonderful is that people spoke on so many different perspectives when it comes to this topic. But what does it all boil down to in the end?
So thanks. I mean, what we were doing in the panels, we had different representations of different views. So we had someone from the commercial background, the industry, who works, builds businesses, and he's also in the media. So he's got a certain perspective. We had Mo, who's been deeply involved in the development of AI and things like that as well. We had Dimitri there as well, who now looks at cybersecurity, and we'll probably come back onto that in a moment, and the AI side of that. And then finally we had Ali from the government perspective.
True.
So again, we got a really good view from the government. And what we were hoping to do was to draw out and push away some of those myths. I think, like when cyber started, as I sort of said on there, it was all a bit mysterious. And then cyber, digital, we went into that technology piece, and it was very binary, ones and zeros. We're now moving into a different space where we have that crossover of intelligence, but actually it's machine intelligence, should we call it, for want of a better word. And we've all seen those Hollywood films about the takeover and things like that. So I think within that AI sense, there's potentially quite a lot of fear, but sometimes that comes back to not having that understanding. And part of my opening, I just AI'd what AI is.
Yeah.
So just starting to break down, what does it mean? What are we talking about? How can it help us in transforming government services? How can it help us improving citizens' lives around the world? But also we do have to temper that. It's a bit like having a motor vehicle. When cars came along, they developed over time, and then we had to put safety features into those cars because there was those unintended consequences. So when people had an accident, they didn't have something restraining them, they went through the windscreen. So we brought in seat belts or improved the brakes. But if you don't press the brake, or you don't have your car maintained, or you don't put the seat belt on, I'm not saying it's your fault, but there'll be unintended consequences. And we're at that sort of pioneering stage now and frontier stage around AI, where we look at those user cases. And this is why I'm trying to change that conversation. Rather than let technology drive the user case, we look at those real clear user cases and try to work out how AI can support those user cases.
Mo said something that was eye-opening on stage. It's not about AI, it's about how we use it and the regulations around it.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you're saying now. We're studying the matter as we go, and developing it as we go. How can we use AI today in a way where it doesn't lead us to misinformation?
So I think, AI is one source of information, or the use of AI is 1 or 2, 3 different sources. We still then have to go to people as well. We still need to go to experts in different areas, as we had on the stage there. So getting that broad perspective, aggregating that information or data. So effectively bringing that data together, and then we can make informed decisions. And if we just do it on the basis of AI and trust everything in AI, yes, I could be a university student, I need write me an essay on X, Y, and Z, and the essay is written. How do we then verify that essay? How does the university professor or lecturer make sure that person's really worked on that? They haven't either just taken it off through AI, or they've got a third party to write it for them. So a lot of it comes back to that verification side of things, fact-checking effectively.
So are we saying that one of the things that we might expect as a development in the future is that in the academic or in the educational industry, they might refer back to AI today in a way where there's space for students to use it, but also regulation?
So I think, students are already using it. We know that. My son's just done his university degree, and he was using it, and he was in a fairly non-technical degree type, but he was pushing for information from there, and that's been provided back to him. How different is that then to going online and doing some research? Well, actually, you are having to do that research. You're pulling together all different things. You're referencing all of that research. In AI, you don't potentially need to do that.
Yeah.
So again, that verification stage is really important in this. So it's already been used and will continue to be used. And actually we have to adapt and develop, as you said, partly as we go along. And could you say we're making it up as we go along? Well, possibly yes. But
trial
actually
and error.
having that trial and error, but that understanding. And then I think what we'll then move back to is we've gone from this expansion globally. What we'll then come back to slowly is another way of sitting down and having this face-to-face conversation. That human interaction
We're
is
back to that.
so important.
True. I mean, we discussed the example of your son using AI. But what if we implement that on the use of AI today in the corporate world or in organizations? How can they, from your perspective, ensure safe use of AI?
So I think that comes with, I don't want to use the word regulation, but it comes around having a set of principles, shall we say, about how you use AI, but then being transparent. And that helps build that trust. We just touched on the trust issue at the end. We've met for the very first time today. We're nodding, we're agreeing, we're having that interaction, and we'll build that trust during this conversation. But again, in the corporate space, we've heard AI bandied about all the time now as, yes, we have this AI solution for this. Okay, what does that actually mean? So being able to explain that within the business sense to your company and people within your company, and then how do you explain that outside of the company as well effectively? Because everybody's going to be using the new technology in one way or another. So you'll have sectors which have a competitive edge to them, trying to get a further edge by using AI effectively in their, or efficiently in their business sense as well.
I'm going to ask you my last question. How do corporates today, and not only corporates, I would also include the academic sector here, spread awareness on the right ways to use AI?
So I think, on the government global level now, we've got government and private sector coming together. And I think it's the first time I've heard the private sector say, we need regulation.
True.
You don't normally hear that from the private sector. They say, no, we want
They've
less
been hit
regulation, we want to
hard.
deregulise it. But I think the recognition is, I'm not saying we've let the genie out of the box, but it's out there now.
Yeah.
And, it is developing so quickly. People's understanding of it, corporations' understanding of it, use of it. You're using it, but actually, what are you actually using? Do you understand where it's leading us all effectively? Mm-hmm. So I think that comes back, as I said earlier, to that transparency and trust piece as well. We've got to have those conversations. We've got to have conferences such as this,
True.
where we bring different people together with different views and ideas, and we can have those, let's call them robust challenges. We're all different at the end of the day, but how we use AI in our day-to-day life, whether we're using it to write an example of give me one paragraph on AI, or write a business strategy for my international company as the chief executive, taking all these points in his company. But once you've got that, you then, I would say, still need people and that business to develop that further.
If there's one particular thing you would want all the attendees today to take back from your presence on stage, whether it's today or we're going to have the honor to see you again tomorrow, what would that be?
So, I'm coming from a 40-year plus public service background in law enforcement. I've walked those streets in Totton, Hampshire, United Kingdom, speaking to my community whilst I was that police officer. I finished my career as the Director of Cybercrime at INTERPOL, where I was running a global programme. It's keep it simple. Make sure you engage. Make sure you build that trust. Make sure you challenge. And all of us sharing that information effectively. And if you don't know, you're not the only person in that room that doesn't know. Put the hand up and ask the question, because someone will come up later and thank you for asking that question.
I like that. To stay in loop. That's the best way to stay authentic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Craig.
Thank you very much.
And we're excited to see you on stage tomorrow as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.